In this video, I'm going to be reacting to the training methods of Floyd Mayweather. So we're starting off with Floyd Mayweather chopping wood, part of his conditioning, his core strength, grip strength, and this is all matches up to what it takes to be a hard puncher. Many boxers have done this in the past, even in the Rocky films, Floyd Mayweather, and also Cole Froch.
Before I knocked out George Groves at Wembley Stadium in front of 80,000 fans, I worked a lot on power, and I chopped down a few trees myself.
In recent research I'm doing at Boxing Science that we're looking to get published within the next year or so, we're running correlations between punch power and a range of physical tests. And the biggest contributors that we're seeing at the moment is rotational strength and grip strength. So you can see how chopping wood trains this, because we're working on that rotation when we're bringing the axe overhead, and then when we're coming slamming down, we're having to have a tight grip to keep hold of the handle. An important factor for the punch is a snap. So effective mass, the end range of the punch, we're looking for that global stiffening effect, the global isometric tension through the arms and through the core and through the lower body, and this is exactly what you need on impact when chopping wood. So even though it's beneficial, you've got to think about how practical it is. You know, access to axe, going out and chopping some logs up. Obviously Mayweather's got millions of dollars, he's got people that can drive him about everywhere to drive him out into the woods and do something like this. You've got to think about how practical is it, and also you've got to think about what you put in and what you get out of it. So how optimal is it? You've got to do hundreds of reps of this to actually get something out of it. You can't just do a set of 3 sets of 10 or something like that. With this, with how many reps that you got to do with it, comes a lot of fatigue, a lot of bad postures, result in soreness and injury. So instead of doing wood chops, I look to try and separate the physical contributors and try to optimize each one as separate exercises. So when you're looking to improve rotational strength and power, do a range of rotational strength and power exercises such as pull-off press, isometric pull-off press, where we're optimizing the isometric tension and rate of force development, and then working on to med ball rotational throws, med ball rotational slams, sets of 3 to 5 repetitions. We're doing it with 3 to 7 kilo medicine balls, and we're optimizing the speed and the technique and that rate of force development. And then when you're wanting to do grip strength training, you want to do that through pinch holds, pinch pendulum, and a range of different hands and wrist exercises. So even though chopping wood can be beneficial, there's a lot more practical, more effective ways on how you can take this exercise into your training plan. So even though Floyd Mayweather says that it doesn't do strength conditioning, there's a lot of strength training clips that we've got from here, and they're really impressive. He's doing this pull-up with like a bicycle leg raise at the same time. It takes the incredible grip strength, upper body strength, upper body pulling strength, lats, so it's really switched on and fired up, and in particular core strength as well. This move that he's doing is very calisthenic based, which brings me on to a debate about calisthenics for boxing. In this scenario here, it does a 20-second rep and it feels like you can't do another, he has to have a rest. To get strong, have a range of different things. You've got to have rate of force development, perform fast and forceful reps. So we're wanting to try and optimize the load and optimize the speed on every single repetition. On here, he's doing it quite slow. He's performing this exercise here, which is very difficult, but he does it for a 20-second repetition. Then he has a long rest period after. Normal pull-ups or leg raises or anything like that, if you did that as a normal set, but do it like tempo reps, let's say 2 seconds up, 3 to 4 seconds down, you're looking at 8 to 10 repetitions, looking at either 30 to 45 seconds of time under tension. And this is really important for strength and also important for muscular hypertrophy. And also you're getting the volume through the eccentric loading. So doing a really intense exercise for 20 seconds, like a calisthenic type exercise, won't be as beneficial as doing the bodyweight exercise such as leg raises, pull-ups, and doing that for 8 to 10 or 12 repetitions. What I'd say with this, with Floyd Mayweather, really impressive strength. Again, a little bit like the chopping wood, separate it. Don't be looking to try and go for this big bang for your buck in terms of like doing so many things at once. Like I said, grip strength, upper body strength, core strength, stability, kind of isometric strength as well. Thing is, you're getting about a 6 or 7 out of 10 on each one, rather than optimizing each aspect. Okay, so these are really impressive core stand-ups. Now, Mayweather does this with relative ease. If you've ever tried to do them, you realize how hard they are. I first started getting into boxing and strength conditioning and doing boxing training as well, I tried to do these sit-ups and they were so difficult, and he can do 50, 100, probably do multiple sets of these as well. You need a lot of core strength to be able to do it. You're getting into that deep hip flexion and extension, and when he's coming down, a lot of core control, a lot of eccentric forces that he's got to deal with. A lot of boxers will struggle to replicate this, probably get into bad postures, into kyphosis, into that deep hip flexion. They'll start compensating with other muscle groups. So again, separating them. When you want to do squats and try and optimize that rate of force development. On the core strength, a few different things that you can do: straight arm, straight leg sit-ups, doing that weighted dead bugs, banded dead bugs, and making sure that you're getting that postural stability at the same time. If you're wanting a little bit of a challenge, you can do something called a Turkish get-up, where you're working with a kettlebell and trying to keep the kettlebell as high as you can. They are a decent exercise to do, challenges a range of different things. What it does with the kettlebell and keeping that elevated maintains that postural stability that I probably won't get with these sit-ups into stand-ups. So we've got a hugely popular exercise here, ab wheel rollouts. These are fantastic for anti-extension, really targeting the abs, controlling that extension, which can increase core strength, but also can reduce that lower back pain. However, with rollouts being a really popular exercise, there's a lot of mistakes that can be made when doing this exercise. So rollouts can be done in a range of different ways. They can be done with barbells, suspension trainer. My favorite is to do it with ab wheel because it's more shoulder friendly. You can really engage the abs, and there's a range of different variations that you can use. Now, the key mistake that I see, and this is what Mayweather's doing here, is that is overextending at the end. It's incredible strength to be able to get all the way to the end like that. But what you can see is that it's not sticking to the purpose of the exercise. Remember, this is anti-extension, where you're resisting extension of the lumbar spine. You can see that his back is actually just dropping a little bit, so his core isn't doing the work. So if you've done ab wheel rollouts before, and you can't really feel it in your core, but you can feel it in your back more, this is probably the technique that you're doing. Also, when Floyd Mayweather's coming in, is flexing the hips and switching the core off. So what I want to introduce to you now is what we do at Boxing Science. It's called the 80-20 rule. Instead of going from 0 to 100% of the movement, we start at 20% of the movement, go through to 80% of the movement. Maintaining that core tension at the very start, we're getting our hips all the way in, squeezing the glutes, maintaining that core tension, putting all of our weight into the ab wheel. And then as we extend to 80%, we get ourselves a little target. You're creating enough stretch on the abdominal muscles, create eccentric loading to create that strength stimulus without them hips dropping and going into that extension of the lumbar spine. Even though we're going 80% of the movement, we're optimizing the time under tension and the recruitment of the ab muscles, and that's the adaptation that we're looking for. You can do banded, you can do from standing, but you've got to make sure that you're resisting the hip flexion and the hip extension when doing ab wheel rollouts. So what we've got here is Mayweather in a supine position, pushing up against a med ball, just working towards that end range of the upper limb and working on flexion and extension of the elbow. And I've seen this more as a preparation tool rather than a strength exercise, just due to the weight in his hand wraps as well. So it looks like he's going into a boxing session. So it's looking like he's trying to protect that elbow joint, which is very vulnerable for boxing just because of repetitive nature of the sport, massive flexion and extension forces going through the elbow, and a lack of that kind of strength and stability through the shoulder joint means that the elbow takes a lot of flack. A lot of elbow injuries that happen when over extension. You can see that Mayweather there is just working flexion and extension, so he's probably getting them elbow tendons in a safe place before going into his boxing session. So I think it looks like a pretty good exercise to use. Other alternatives could be doing punch iso holds, this in a range of different ways, not just looking at that extension, but also looking at hooks and uppercuts. So doing like this for 3 to 5 seconds on each punching action and doing to 1 to 2 sets. So Mayweather showing impressive strength again, performing tricep dips, getting really deep into that dipping action, an exercise to develop the chest, the shoulders and the triceps. However, at Boxing Science, we don't really do tricep dips, especially in this way and getting this deep as what Mayweather's doing here. The reason why is because boxers get very tight in their shoulders because of the thousands of punches that they throw every single day during boxing. What can happen that these shoulders can roll forward, you can get this internal rotation of the humeral head. And what this does is create a lot of tension through this shoulder joint. This is why we see so many boxers with shoulder injuries, unfortunately ending up with having some sort of shoulder surgeries. In normal day-to-day life, they'll have this internal rotation of the humeral head. But then when you put stress on it through pressing actions, this is something that you really got to consider when performing shoulder press or chest press. And definitely when you're looking to do dips. On a chest press, that boxer can end up in the then bottom ranges, getting that internal rotation of the humeral head. During dips, because the arms are behind the body, they're going to turn in. So you can see even here, Mayweather, the shoulders are turning in. Obviously this worked for Mayweather, but I was just saying for everybody, this might not be an optimal tool to developing chest and tricep strength. Alternatives would be to do press-ups, banded press-ups, dumbbell floor press, dumbbell chest press, and doing rack press. So these exercises are fantastic because not only are they more shoulder friendly, but we're going to be able to load them up more and perform each rep with optimal speed and intent to optimize the rate of force development. And this is what transfers to fast and forceful punches. Doing neck training, he had a very strong neck and he had a very strong chin as well. Only looked to be troubled only a couple of times during his career, which was at the very top for a long time. So neck training is a massive part for boxing, taking blows to the head, injury prevention point of view. Some studies are suggesting that it helps reduce concussion symptoms, a spinal health point of view. So looking for that postural stability, like we say about boxers, anterior dominant sport, them shoulders being tight, this can create like some sort of neck and spinal injuries. You need to make sure that even though you're focusing on shoulder strength, shoulder stability, you need to be performing neck strength exercises as well. So mostly like looking at these Boxing Science Reacts videos, a lot of the champions do chaotic neck training, and this can end up being quite dangerous and suboptimal in terms of like for neck health. You can see here that Mayweather is really extending the spine and really jolting his neck back, even though this might be strengthening it. Is it optimal? He's only doing it with 5 kilos. We can possibly do more tension through doing like some sort of isometric exercise where it's resisting that movement. Just going flexion and extension as well, wanting to really work on controlling the rotation of the neck. So doing some lateral isometrics is really important as well. Neck training, important tool. Great to see Mayweather using it here. However, if you're wanting to start implementing neck training, start doing it with a band first for longer repetitions, let's say for 20 to 30 second holds. Then try and reduce that, but increase the tension either by stepping away from the anchor point or getting a partner to hold it. And then you can do some more intensive isometrics with 3 to 5 second holds where we're looking for like a RPE of 8 or 9 out of 10. Okay, so Mayweather's doing some yoga here. I've seen this in a yoga class before. Marking his spot with dollar bills. Classic. Yoga is very good for obviously strength, stability, mobility. So this brings me on to a question. Is yoga good for boxing? I'd probably say to most boxers to not do yoga. And the reason why is even though they've got a lot of benefits attached, such as strength, stability, mobility, flexibility, a lot of core strength as well. And these are obviously needed within boxing to prepare the body to improve performance, reduce the likelihood of injury. However, you can see in this class here that Mayweather's in, there's about 20 people in the class. The yoga teacher is teaching these certain positions. Boxers will look to try and get into that position no matter what, without thinking about the muscles that are needed to be activated to improve that mobility or flexibility. What I found with athletes that do yoga that have been on the Boxing Science program, that they actually flare up injuries, particularly in lower back. They're getting into these stressful positions where they're not activating the correct muscle groups to maintain that position in the correct way, and they're looking to just try and compensate using the lower back, a lot of loading through that lower back, and then they go boxing or go lifting or go running training, and suddenly the back goes because they've gone under a lot of stress and strain through doing these yoga classes. So there's a lot of exercises that are good in yoga, but you've got to make sure that you do this in a more controlled way to make sure that you're activating the right muscle groups. So there's loads of different exercises that we use at Boxing Science. Yoga press-ups, which incorporates downward dog. We've got Spider-Man twists, quadruped hip extensions and fire hydrants, and everything like that incorporates some sort of yoga exercises into their warm-up. But we do this in a more controlled way to make sure that they're activating the right muscle groups and they're optimizing the adaptations that they're getting from these mobility exercises. Performing the lat pull down. I'm a big fan of the lat pull down for boxing. A lot of boxers struggle with doing pull-ups, in particular wide grip pull-ups. Now the reason why they struggle with wide grip pull-ups is because they're quite tight in their shoulders, so they struggle to get into this external rotation, and when they start struggling, they start flaring up the rib cage, flaring up the lower back, and trying to do anything to get up into that position. Also, looking at boxers at the start of training camp, using the lat pull down can be more beneficial because you start in training camp, we're looking to try and increase the weight loads ever so steadily, so we'll do body weight or light loaded exercises. Whereas like the pull-ups, you're literally pulling up a 70 kilo, 80 kilo boxer, pulling up a lot of weight first stages of training camp rather than building up that weight ever so steadily. Doing the lat pull down allows you to perform this pulling action, doing it at a lesser load and making sure that you're optimizing that technique and the recruitment of the lats and upper back muscles. Got some incredible skipping action here. Mayweather, he was king of the ring, but also king of the skipping rope as well. Unbelievable. A fantastic conditioning tool, fantastic for then sub-maximal plyometric actions. I feel that skipping can be quite neglected with boxers of today. Don't really see many videos of boxers doing this anymore. I feel that it's hugely beneficial from a conditioning point of view, from warm-up point of view, but also for plyometrics, increasing that reactive strength index, which is really important to explode from the foot complex for dynamic footwork, but also for punching power. From a conditioning perspective, we do it in our red zone circuits as a heart rate spiker. Also encourage boxers to do this as part of their warm-up because you can end up elevating the heart rate, getting them submaximal actions through the feet, the calf complex warmed up. From a plyometric point of view, these submaximal actions can help increase reactive strength index, which is really important for dynamic footwork and punch power. So at Boxing Science, we train this in intensive plyometrics, pogos, depth jumps, and a range of different short ground contact time plyometrics. These won't work as effectively if we haven't got the foundations of the submaximal plyometrics, such as skipping. If you're a boxer doing plyometrics, doing strength conditioning, make sure that you get the skipping involved as well, getting these submaximal actions to create that tendon stiffness that can really transfer into dynamic footwork and more explosive punches. Plenty of videos of Mayweather running in the pitch black of night in Las Vegas. I don't know whether this was done for the cameras or he actually did this. Training late at night, I'm not a huge fan of because you want to try and optimize your recovery between training sessions. There's loads of different things that you can do. Heat and cold exposure, compression, yoga and recovery exercises. You can do active recovery, but the most important thing is sleep. And if you're training late at night, this will elevate your heart rate, your body core temperature. Even if you train late at night, let's say 11 o'clock, you might not be able to sleep for the next 2 to 3 hours because you're raising that heart rate and raising that core temperature. This affects your cardiac rhythm, which will affect your sleep and sleep quality. We try at Boxing Science to get our athletes to finish training before 5 or 6 o'clock at night to make sure that they have a few hours to bring down that core temperature and optimize their sleep. Okay guys, so that's the end of the Boxing Science Reacts video. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoyed looking at Mayweather's training methods. He's always said that he doesn't do strength conditioning, but there's a lot of exercises that are looking to try and boost his physical performance to make him into a better athlete, make him into one of the greatest boxers of all time. There's a lot of things there that can be directly pulled and put into your training program, but there's also exercises there that you can create variations from to optimize the training response and adaptation. So thank you very much for watching. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future content. If you are interested in our training methods, you can go check out the Boxing Science website and use the code BOXINGSCIENCE50 and get 50% off your first purchase. We've got a range of different programs, got ebooks on strength training, conditioning training, and nutrition plans as well. Or you can check out our Train Like Champion membership, where you can follow the blueprint to elite performance for just £19.99 a month. Hopefully see you on the next episode of Boxing Science Reacts.